When I first started training, I thought I knew everything. After 3 years of lifting, or even 5 years of lifting, I thought I knew more than everyone. But it wasn't actually until I hit around the 10-year mark of training that I actually realized I was very wrong. And at 20 plus years in the game currently, I'm gonna share 10 things that I wish I knew about building muscle back then, in no particular order. Number 1, progression over everything. I've been down that road hyper-focusing over the exact amount of sets you should perform per week or per workout. Obsessing over the exact days you should spend in the gym, the exact number of each set per exercise, the exact number of reps per each exercise, and after years and years of focusing on trying to find the exact or perfect number for each one of those things, both with myself and clients I work with, it always proves to be the same answer. There is a range of the amount of sets you perform that will get you the best results, and there is a range of repetitions that you perform to get the best results. And as long as you're within that range, the results are going to be virtually the same. But the one thing that matters most above all these other details is in fact progression. If you're training in a way that you're consistently getting stronger, performing more reps or more weight, and you're even perfecting your technique at the same time, these other details, they mean nothing. That's because if you're making progress, you're within that ideal rep range for each one of these things. So instead of obsessing over those smaller details, focus on what you're actually after, progression. And as a result, that'll help you dial in all those small details. Number 2, the game changes. Everyone on the internet loves to argue about what works and what doesn't. The most common arguments are, 1, this works because science backs it up. And 2, this works well because it worked for me. And the truth is, what I swore worked best for me in the first 5 years of lifting is actually the complete opposite of the way I train today to still make progress. And it's not to say that I was wrong back then. I made probably the fastest progress that anyone can make in their first 5 years of lifting. But what I didn't understand is, as you become bigger, stronger, and more advanced, not to mention older and more mature in the gym, your training must change accordingly to continue to grow. If I tried to do exactly what I did when I first started training now, I'd not only regress and likely get smaller and weaker, but I'd probably injure myself. So understand that as you become more advanced, your training is going to have to naturally change. This is usually at the stage that intermediates get stuck at. They refuse to change their training because they swear they know what works. But the reality is, they've likely only figured out how to get newbie gains. 3, hard training and painful training are not the same thing. I often talk about the importance of hard training. Hard training builds muscle. Lifting heavy weights relative to the rep range you're training in, doing big compound lifts, and training near failure. These are all things that are not only hard to do, but they also build lots of muscle. These are things you want to lean into in the gym if you want to grow. Now, there are many painful things that you can do in the gym as well. These are many things that people actually benefit you, but they actually don't. When I think of one of the most painful things to do in the gym, I'm thinking about doing 30 repetitions on a leg extension. Every single rep focusing on a 2 to 3 second squeeze at the top. The last reps of the sets approaching failure, and after that, dropping down the weight and continue going in drop set fashion. When we're talking about pain in the gym, that probably takes the cake. Maybe sets of 20 to 30 on squats, that'll have your lungs burning, your lower back fried, and your entire body fatigued. Both of these examples are extremely painful. But does this increase in pain or discomfort actually grow more muscle as a result? Not really. In fact, when we're training to build muscle, we want to lift heavy weights relative to the rep range that we're training in, and we want sets taken to failure or near failure. If you're doing, let's say, squats for 6 to 10 reps with the right load on the bar to accomplish this, it's not going to burn nearly as much as those super high rep leg extensions, but it's arguably going to build more muscle. So when training, don't look to do things because they're painful. Do things that actually build the most muscle. If you do this, you'll find that the things that build muscle are relatively hard, but this is for a very different reason. 4, soreness is not a useful indicator of growth. I'll keep this one short and sweet. Soreness is a side effect from training. You might get it, you might not. The more you train, the more frequently you train, the less it'll occur. The less frequently you train, or the more often you take time off from the gym, the more sore you will get. Now, this doesn't tell us if the workout was productive or not. All it tells us is that when you were sore, your body wasn't used to that stimulus. 5, rep range is a matter of exercise selection. 8 to 12 reps has always been the gold standard of bodybuilding training. 5 reps or less generally for strength. Today, most people agree that muscle gains are similar across all rep ranges. But the one point that I do want to drive home here is, and one thing that I really didn't grasp early on in my training, is that the rep range you pick should match the exercise you're performing. The bigger and more technical the lift, the lower the rep range should be. And the lighter, more isolation exercises, they can potentially benefit from higher repetitions. If you're performing a lift that can have lots of technique breakdown, especially as you approach failure at higher repetitions, lower rep sets will allow you to train the target muscle near failure, all with cleaner, less risky repetitions. As the sets progress in repetitions, your risk of form breakdown increases. It's much harder to reach failure on a compound lift at 15 to 20 repetitions than it is at 5 to 6 repetitions. 6. Overtraining is not as bad as you think. Most people worry about doing too much in the gym. What most people don't understand is that while you can train too hard or too often to grow muscle, if you do happen to do that, all you have to do to remedy that is rest. While I don't recommend training beyond your recovery ability, you should train at least until you find that limit. This is how you'll actually know how hard you can train and recover and still come back and grow. But what happens if you go too far and train beyond your body's recovery ability? All you need to do is back off, rest, recover, and get back to it. There's advanced training methods designed to specifically supercompensate from this effect. I've done it many times. Progressively push until you exceed your recovery ability, then pull back very hard. Rest, supercompensate, and grow. 7. Low rep sets are great. Going back to my argument about low rep sets for compound lifts, I want to take this a bit further and say that any exercise can be performed correctly with lower rep sets, provided your technique is on point. If barbell rows feel great with higher repetitions because you get a great pump, ask yourself one question. If I lower the reps, can I possibly take that muscle closer to failure with better technique? If so, you might benefit from training it with lower reps. But again, there's no magical rep range here, just one that you could productively use to take that muscle group close to or to failure in a set. 8. Rest days are part of the plan. Rest days are not days off from training. Rest days are literally part of the training plan. These are days of the training plan that require you not to exert yourself. You get weaker and smaller from training. You get bigger and stronger from rest. Now, of course, more rest is not always better. But if you're not balancing rest with your training, your recovery is going to be out of balance. 9. Trying to focus on multiple things at once is a waste of time. This is very common today. You have guys trying to build muscle and burn fat at the same time. You have guys trying to increase their bench, squat, and deadlift, but want to build massive biceps in the process. Of course, you can train and focus on multiple things, but if you do so, you'll likely get decent results at best. If you want to get great results at anything, pick one goal, give it 100% effort, and accomplish it. Then, move on to the next one. 10. Hard work is always the prerequisite. I say this every time, but it's worth mentioning again. You can't look at any training variable and forget that hard work comes first. If I say low reps are good, compound lifts are good, X amount of sets are good, X amount of training days per week is good, you have to understand that even if you now have the optimal number of training sets, reps, exercises, days in the gym, if you're not performing each one of those with full intensity, if you're not applying each one of those with a high level of effort, none of those small details matter any longer. Dial in your level of effort first, then optimize all the other variables. And if you want the exact training programs that I personally recommend to build muscle using proven old school bodybuilding methods, all my old school mass gain programs are down below. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.